The moment I read the wedding invitation list and saw my name missing, I thought it was a mistake. A clerical error, maybe. A missed line. I mean, I paid for the damn wedding. Not just a little help here and there. No. I footed the entire bill. Venue, catering, the band, floral arrangements, even the custom 3-tier cake with edible gold dusting. It cost more than what I make in 6 months, but I did it for my younger brother. For family. So, you can imagine my confusion when my phone stayed silent, my inbox empty, and the day came and went with not even a text. I only found out what happened when my cousin sent me a photo, one of those wide shots where everyone is beaming in front of the altar. Everyone but me. I confronted my mother first. She dodged, hesitated, then sighed like I was being dramatic. Sweetheart, it just didn't feel right. You tend to outshine people. We didn't want to take attention away from the groom. My own mother. The one who once called me her golden child. And then came the worst part, my brother confirmed it. He said the same thing. That it was his day, and having me there would shift the spotlight. Spotlight? I never asked for a spotlight. I gave them the stage. I lit it, paid for the sound system, even handed them the script. And somehow my kindness became a threat. There's a funny kind of ache that sets in when the people you love turn around and make you feel disposable. Like your generosity is a flaw. Like your presence is a burden. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the slow, sinking realization that sometimes the ones closest to you will hurt you, not out of hate, but out of insecurity. And I learned the hard way that family doesn't always mean loyalty. Let me take you back to the beginning, before the money, before the snub, when I still believed that love was enough. It started 6 months before the wedding. My younger brother, Daniel, called me up sounding like he was halfway between excitement and a nervous breakdown. "We've finally set a date," he announced. June 18th. But, bro, we're gonna need some help. It wasn't the first time Daniel had asked me for help. I'd always been the one with the steady job, the emergency fund, the spare room when things fell apart. Our parents struggled most of their lives, and I made it out because I worked harder than anyone. I had to. So, when Daniel told me they couldn't afford the wedding of their dreams, I didn't hesitate. "How much do you need?" I asked. That was always my line. Never if. Just how much. He laughed nervously. "We've done the math. With the venue and food and everything, maybe 15,000. It was steep, but I said yes. Not because I'm loaded, far from it, but because he's my little brother. And when we were kids, I used to tuck him in when Mom forgot. I used to sneak food into our room when there wasn't enough to go around. I told myself, he deserves a beautiful day. He deserves something good. In the months leading up to the wedding, I became the invisible backbone of their fantasy. I wired money in installments, reviewed catering proposals, even helped book the jazz trio his fiancée, Melissa, fell in love with online. We weren't close, Melissa and I. From day one, there was an unspoken tension between us. She always kept our interactions polite, but distant. I thought maybe she just wasn't used to my family's loud energy, our tendency to laugh too hard and talk over each other. I let it go. One day, I showed up unannounced to drop off some final payment receipts. Melissa opened the door, looking surprised. Not pleasantly. "Oh, hey," she said. "Daniel's not home." I smiled. "That's okay. Just came to drop these off." Her eyes flicked down to the envelope, then back to my face. "You know, you really don't have to do all this. We could have figured something out." I waved it off. "It's what family does." She didn't smile. Looking back, I think that was the first time I saw it, the way she looked at me. Like I was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Like I complicated things just by existing. Things got stranger closer to the wedding. I'd offer to help set up appointments, meet the photographer, even organize the rehearsal dinner. But Melissa always had an excuse. "We've got it covered. We don't want to stress you out. Let's just keep things simple." Daniel stopped looping me in too. Our once daily texts slowed to a trickle. And when I asked him about it, he shrugged it off. "It's just wedding stuff, man. You know how it is." No, I didn't. 2 weeks before the wedding, I asked him directly. Hey, man. Did I miss the invitation or something? He froze for a moment. Just a flicker. Oh, yeah, about that. What? He scratched the back of his neck. We were thinking, maybe it's better if you sit this one out. I blinked. Sit out your wedding? You know how mom gets, he said quickly. And Melissa, she's worried it might get weird. You always have this way of, I don't know, drawing attention. Drawing attention? He shrugged. You walk into a room and people look. You talk and people listen. It's just, this is supposed to be our day. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. I paid for your day, I said. He looked away. I told myself maybe it was cold feet. Maybe they'd change their minds. Maybe he'd call. But the silence just got louder. And the worst part? Mom didn't say a word. When I called her, she defended them. It's their day, sweetheart. Don't make it about you. As if I had. The relationships I thought were built on love were suddenly showing their cracks. I began to wonder how long they had felt this way, resentful, threatened. How long had my success been a shadow cast over them instead of a light to guide them? I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hurt. Deeply. And I was starting to realize, this wasn't about a wedding. This was about something much bigger. Something buried under years of unspoken jealousy and polite bitterness. Something that had been waiting for the right moment to break the surface. And it just did. After the shock settled, something deeper took root: confusion. I replayed conversations in my head, tried to analyze every moment, every gesture, every glance I might have misread. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? But then came the anger. I had never been someone who kept score. I didn't tally every favor or gift or dollar spent. But when you're erased from your own generosity, it forces you to look at things differently. I stopped answering Daniel's calls. Not that there were many. He sent one text a few days before the wedding. Hope we're cool. Let's catch up after the honeymoon. I stared at it for 20 minutes before deleting it. No response. Let him sit with that. I thought about showing up to the wedding anyway, just walking in like a ghost of the truth. But I'm not that petty. At least, I wasn't then. Instead, I stayed home. Ordered cheap Chinese takeout and sat on my couch while my bank app mocked me with a negative balance and my Instagram feed exploded with smiles, toasts, and sparkling lights. Everyone looked perfect. Everyone but me. Then came the photos from the reception. One from my cousin really cut deep: Daniel and Melissa dancing under a string of fairy lights I paid for, holding champagne flutes I chose from a catalog. My mother smiling at them like they were royalty. Like her eldest son hadn't been boxed out of the most important day of the family's life. And that's when I noticed something strange. In every photo, every video, there was a man I didn't recognize. Tall, dark suit, clearly part of the wedding party. I asked my cousin who he was. Oh, that's Melissa's cousin, Aiden, she texted back. He stepped in as best man last minute. Didn't Daniel tell you? No, he didn't. I'd been replaced. Not just uninvited, replaced. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I didn't just feel excluded. I felt erased. Like I was never meant to be part of the story at all. Like my role was to fund the fairy tale and disappear before the curtain rose. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I visited my parents. I showed up on a Sunday unannounced, just like the old days. Mom answered the door with that soft, guarded smile. The one she always wore when she was expecting a fight. Hi, sweetheart. Don't sweetheart me. She stepped aside and let me in without a word. The house smelled like rosemary chicken, comfort food. Guilt food. She offered me a plate. I declined. I sat across from her, hands on the table, voice steady. Tell me the truth. Whose idea was it to leave me out? She sighed, folding her napkin like that would somehow make this easier. It wasn't about punishing you. It was about protecting Daniel. From what? My presence? My kindness? My money? She winced. You don't understand how hard it is for him, always living in your shadow. You were always the golden one. Always getting straight A's, landing promotions, helping everyone. Daniel never stood a chance next to you. I blinked. You think I tried to overshadow him? I worked for everything I have. I gave him everything he asked for. I know, she said quietly, but it made him feel small. So instead of celebrating me, you cut me out to make him feel taller. She didn't reply, but her silence said enough. I left that day with more answers than I wanted. And still, it hurt. It wasn't just Daniel who excluded me. It was all of them. Over the next few weeks, I pulled away. Calls from Daniel went unanswered. My mother texted a few passive-aggressive messages. You've made your point. He's your brother, no matter what. I ignored them. I wasn't ready to forgive. And more importantly, I wasn't ready to forget. But then, life did what it always does, moved on. Until 3 months later, I ran into Melissa at a grocery store. Alone. She looked stunned to see me. Wow, she said. Hey. I gave her a polite nod and tried to walk past, but she followed me. I didn't expect to see you around here. Why not? I said flatly. You think I stopped existing after the wedding? She gave a tight laugh. Look, I know how that must have felt. But we thought it was for the best. We? Or you? Her lips tightened. I didn't want drama. And you bring a lot of attention wherever you go. Daniel was already nervous enough. So your solution was to treat me like a liability? A threat to your aesthetics? She crossed her arms. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She glanced away, then lowered her voice. Fine. You really want the truth? Daniel was embarrassed. He felt like everyone would compare him to you. Your job, your apartment, your clothes, the way you talk. He's never told you, but he's always felt second-rate next to you. And having you there, front and center on his wedding day? He said it'd be like living his whole life in your shadow all over again. And what about you? I asked. Was it Daniel's insecurity or yours? That shut her up. I left her standing there aisle 5, frozen pizzas behind her and regret on her face. That conversation confirmed everything I feared. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about years of silent comparisons, resentments, inferiority complexes. I'd spent years thinking I was helping them, when in reality, I was reminding them of everything they thought they lacked. The problem wasn't that I was generous. The problem was that my generosity made them feel inadequate. A week later, Daniel finally showed up at my door. He didn't text, didn't call, just knocked. I opened the door and stared at him for a long moment. You have 5 minutes, I said. He nodded, eyes heavy with something I hadn't seen before, shame. I screwed up, he said. I should have told you the truth. I was scared. Scared you'd show up and everyone would look at you instead of me. Scared people would whisper about how you paid for everything, how I couldn't stand on my own. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. So you erased me instead. I didn't know what else to do, he said, voice cracking. I thought if I could have just one day where I didn't have to compete with you, maybe I'd finally feel like enough. I stared at him, and for the first time in a long time, I saw my brother again. Not the man who betrayed me, but the scared little kid who once clung to my hand when our parents fought in the other room. The one who used to sleep in my bed because the dark was too much. The one I'd always protected. Only now, he had hurt me. But maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about one moment. Maybe this was about years of silence. Years of pretending everything was fine while he shrunk in my shadow. And maybe it was time to stop pretending. Get in here, I finally said. He stepped inside, and the door closed behind him. We had a lot to unpack. But for the first time in months, I was willing to try. And he looked ready to listen. Daniel stood in front of me in my living room, wringing his hands like a kid bracing for punishment. It had taken months for him to finally show up, months of silence, guilt, and the slowly widening chasm between us. But now, here he was. I need to say this in person, he said. I didn't respond. Just nodded once and let him speak. I messed up. Not just the wedding, I mean, that too, but the way I've treated you. The way I've felt about you for years. I've been jealous of you since we were kids. You always had it together. You were the smart one, the responsible one, the one Mom bragged about to her friends. And I was just trying to find some place to stand where I didn't feel like a shadow. His voice cracked, and he paused to breathe. I thought if I could just have this one moment, my wedding without you there, maybe I'd finally feel like enough. But instead, all I felt was empty. And ashamed. That word, ashamed, hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was an apology, but because it was honest. I leaned forward. So you lied. Excluded me. Replaced me. Because you thought I'd make people forget you. He looked down. Yes. And you still let me pay for all of it. He winced. I know. That was wrong. I can't take it back. But I swear, I want to make it right. I studied him, really studied him. He wasn't posturing. He wasn't deflecting. This was Daniel, stripped of pride, finally facing the consequences of a lifetime of unspoken resentment. You know what hurts the most? I said, voice calm. It's not the money. It's that you believed the worst about me, that I'd show up to your day and try to steal it. He looked me in the eyes then, and for the first time since all this began, he didn't flinch. I was wrong, he said. And I'm sorry. Silence followed. Heavy, but not hostile. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. We're planning a second reception, he said. Small. Just close family. No distractions. No drama. But this time, you'll be at the center, where you should have been all along. I stared at the envelope, then back at him. Do you really think a party fixes this? No, he said. I think I have to fix this. And that starts with showing you that I want you there, not as a guest, not as a donor, but as my brother. The envelope trembled in his hand. It wasn't about the reception. It wasn't even about the apology. It was about the courage it took to face the person you hurt most and ask, not for forgiveness, but for a second chance. Slowly, I reached out and took the envelope from his hand. And for the first time since the betrayal, I felt the door inside me crack open. Just a little. But enough. The second reception wasn't extravagant. There were no chandeliers, no custom monogrammed napkins, no fireworks or photo booths. It was held in the community center near our childhood neighborhood, a place with scuffed floors and creaky chairs, but more heart than any venue they'd rented the first time. And this time, I was invited. I showed up in a navy blue blazer, nothing too flashy, holding a bottle of wine and a complicated mix of hope and hesitation. My palms were sweating. I'd faced boardrooms and high-stakes meetings without breaking a sweat, but this was different. This was family. Daniel greeted me at the door. He looked nervous, but his smile was real. You came, he said. I said I would. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Thanks, man. As the room filled with family, some distant cousins, a few close friends, Mom holding a camera she clearly didn't know how to use, I realized something. They weren't here for the aesthetics. They were here because Daniel and Melissa were trying to make things right. And in their own clumsy way, they were. Melissa approached me later, wearing a soft expression I'd never seen before. Hi, she said. Can we start over? I paused, then nodded. Yeah, we can. She smiled, relieved, and we stood in silence for a moment. No passive aggression, no tension. Just two people learning to breathe in the same space. When Daniel tapped his glass again, this time without the theatrics, he kept it short and heartfelt. This reception is about more than a wedding, he said. It's about second chances. And I owe mine to someone who should have been beside me from the start, my brother. Not because of what he gave us, but because of who he's always been. I just didn't see it clearly until I pushed him away. The room clapped politely, and I felt everyone glance at me, waiting to see how I'd respond. So I stood, raised my glass. To seeing people before it's too late, I said. And still being willing to see them after. It wasn't flowery. It wasn't rehearsed. But it was honest. After the speeches, Daniel and I found ourselves alone near the back exit, where the cool evening air slipped through the doorway. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. About our childhood. About the quiet envy that festered in the spaces we never dared to discuss. About love, and what it looks like when it's twisted by fear. I always thought you were everything I wasn't, Daniel admitted. And I always thought I had to be, I said. We laughed quietly at that. It was the kind of laugh that sounds like healing. As I left that night, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt lighter. Forgiveness hadn't come as a dramatic speech or some emotional breakdown. It came in pieces, small gestures, uncomfortable truths, and two people choosing to try again. Not because we had to, but because we wanted to. And that, more than any apology, was what made me whole again. In the end, this story isn't about revenge or resentment. It's about reckoning with family, with identity, with the versions of ourselves we quietly carry but rarely confront. I used to think being the strong one meant never needing anything in return, that giving without expecting was the highest form of love. But I've learned that even the strongest hearts can break when they're overlooked long enough. What happened with my brother hurt deeply. Not because I wasn't invited, but because my love, my support, was seen as a threat instead of a gift. And that pain doesn't vanish just because someone says sorry. But growth? It lives in the trying. And Daniel tried. He showed up. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but honestly. And so did I. We're still rebuilding. Still learning how to see each other without comparison, without competition. But we're doing it together now, with fewer assumptions and more truth. I didn't get to stand beside my brother at his wedding. But now, he's choosing to stand beside me in something even more meaningful, the everyday effort of being better brothers. Better men. That matters more than any perfect photo. Sometimes the love we deserve doesn't arrive when we want it. But if we're open, it shows up when we need it most.